Fight against terrorism in Nigeria and other West African countries have taken a new turn. With the assistance of the Global Alliance championed by the United States of America, the Global Coalition to Defeat ISIS resolved to apply lessons learned from fighting against ISIS in Iraq and Syria to defeat Boko Haram and other terror groups in West Africa. The U.S. Department of State, in an issued statement, said the resolution was taken at a virtual meeting with members of the coalition and representatives of African states and relevant regional organizations convened by the United States and Nigeria, which had earlier in the week to discuss the threat of ISIS in West Africa and ways the coalition can contribute to collective efforts to ensure ISIS enduring defeat in the region. Right, Tundu, your take on this? Collaborations to defeat Boko Haram, lessons learned from ISIS?
I think it's great news, but I have to say, a couple of weeks ago, I was reading different articles marking the one-year anniversary of the death of al-Baghdadi and what has become of his ISIS caliphate. And the recurring theme was that, yes, Donald Trump claimed victory against ISIS. It reminded me a bit of our technical defeat of Boko Haram here, because ISIS is still very much alive and kicking in its affiliates and franchises in West Africa, particularly. So it was really quite alarming reading about that, which is why I'm glad that, the spotlight is being placed where it ought to be. We are imperiled by the fact that ISIS was sort of decimated in Iraq and Syria. Rather than go gently into the night, they kind of regrouped in West Africa and present a direct threat to us. Now, when this story was reported in this day also added the budget defense of the Nigerian army, the budget defense session in the Senate, and the fact that the Nigerian army is so underfunded. It's really alarming. So I do hope that this global coalition looks into giving us some assistance in that regard, and also with intelligence. And I also have to commend Senator Ali Ndume, who is the chairman of that committee, for his accurate observations about the government's policy of rehabilitating repentant, in quotes, Boko Haram fighters. And he told this really tragic story of how Malams, who are actual clerics, they're not even regular Muslims, they're clerics, elderly Malams were trotted off to an abattoir and killed. And these are the people that are supposedly giving financial aid and being, reabsorbed into society, when people in IDP camps are not given that kind of, benefit. So I really commend him on that point.
Great point, Dr. Bati.
Well, I think the first point to make is that it is important for us to always stress the fact about international cooperation in the fight against terrorism, because terrorism is not domesticated in any particular country. Terrorism, Boko Haram in Nigeria, as we have seen, it's not a Nigerian problem. It's a global problem. And so we've talked over the years about Al-Qaeda, about ISIS, and how there is illicit international financial flow and support from all kinds of idiot zones in the world, the axis of evil, if you may remember that phrase, supporting terrorism within the Sahel. Now, so there was this virtual meeting in which Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State of the United States, promising support for Nigeria. Yes, Nigeria can do with that support. And as we pointed out, when the UAE said they had convicted certain Nigerians who were, funding the Boko Haram in Nigeria, the point we made was about the global nature of terrorism. And Nigeria is into all kinds of agreements with different countries, the United States, particularly the United Kingdom, at a point South Africa. At a point, we even went to Israel, where we met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whose office is, in fact, smaller than this studio. But yet history is made in that small space. And it turned out to be a very humble man. But anyway, that's another story, not for this subject. So we welcome that international cooperation. However, Mike Pompeo was sounding as if, President Trump is still in power. I do not know whether, after that virtual meeting with the Nigerian authorities, Mike Pompeo can still make assurances. I know that he's a Trump fanatic, and I mean, only yesterday or so, he was saying that President Trump, they are working on a transition for President Trump. So engaging a country like Nigeria and other countries may also be a way of showing confidence. But I think that the Nigerian authorities should also be looking forward. If at the end of the day, Joe Biden becomes the president, I believe that by now, we should also be engaging the Democrats to see how this cooperation, bilateral cooperation to fight Boko Haram, how it is sustained and how the United States keeps its promises. Now, we have seen the case of the United States coming in, sending the Navy SEAL Team 6 to rescue one of their citizens. And at that time, we made the point that, okay, if this is the case, you know, then we also expect, you know, that they will engage the Democrats going forward. So the point I'm making is looking to the future. I know that President Trump is still in power and they can make promises, but how do you effectuate those promises with the prospect of another party, another president coming to power? Because whatever promises they make will end on January 20. And we should be intelligent, and we should be intelligent about the reality that we face. So we're not, it's not as if we're in a void. We're looking at a real situation, what is going to happen next. Can how do you call it? A government that is already a
lame duck.
You know, can you, as a government, rely on those promises? So there must be engagement at various levels. This is the intelligent point that needs to be made. However, the Nigerian government has also said they have declared about, is it 85 Boko Haram leaders wanted. So we'd like to see a situation whereby perhaps, you know, the Nigerian government can, if possible, engage the cooperation of the United States to target these leaders who have been declared wanted. If the Americans can come in and rescue one of their own, perhaps they also have the requisite intelligence and capacity to engage those Boko Haram leaders who have been declared wanted. And then, of course, there's also the point about the reintegration of Boko Haram repentants into the Nigerian system. You know, that has been a controversial issue. Many of us do not believe that the policy of reintegration of criminals should be a priority for the Nigerian government. And we have had indications that even when these persons are reintegrated, they do not necessarily show any repentance.
Yes. But for me, even if
the battle against terrorism is a continuous battle, and it's a battle to which the Nigerian government should remain committed because it's a threat to the sovereignty of Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much. That's all on News Headline. Take a short break. When we return, we'll have Rotus, Odiri, Michael Wilson, and Adeswa, and Aaron Akerjala to join us on Africa Global Business Update and COVID-19 Update. Stay with us. Welcome back. Still there, Rise News Channel. This morning we've got Rotus Odiri here with us, giving us Africa Business Update. Rotus, pleasure to talk to you this morning. Yes,
good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Doctor. So we're going to be talking about the ease of doing business in Nigeria. It's still a topic that continues to resurface. There's a video that's been circulating on social media, an entrepreneur in Abuja that accused AMAC, which is the Abuja Municipal Area Council, of a shakedown, essentially. So she's got a number of videos out there. We'll just play the first one. Let's take a listen to what she said here.
But this is not. I know this is not just me that this thing is happening to. It's happening to a lot of business owners in this country. But this is not fair. This is not fair. Like we work from morning till night to make sure that we attain this success. We make sure that we help these people that work under us. I mean, you can't expect us to be doing business and at the same time every bloody day these AMAC people will come and frustrate you. I'm just coming from Gwarimpa branch. I'm going to post the videos behind beside this one. Like, they went to Gwarimpa branch this morning. It is a restaurant that has a bigger branch. The main branch is in Busetu. You come from nowhere, you just go to the other branch and seal it. And you sealed it with the people inside plus customer. Why would you seal a restaurant with people inside? Why? With food, with things that we took to that place. For what reason? You said, oh, you need a food handler's receipt. Because we did not have the food handler's report receipt in Gwarimpa, they brought a court order to seal the place. Then they called me. I was in a meeting. I said, okay, let me speak to the guy. I spoke to him and he said, Madam, it's either we lock it up or you give us 250. And I was like, I don't understand. I give you 250. Where the hell will I get the 250 to give you? Every bloody day you come with different receipts. I said, sir, we've paid for this. The receipts are in the main branch. Could you come to the main branch or can you wait for them to bring all the receipts? Before I opened this restaurant, I went out of my way to do the right thing, to get all the receipts, every single thing that we need to register for. I went out of my way to get them. I registered for them. Last year, I did the whole registration. We paid through Remitter. Then they keep coming every day. When we show them a receipt from the remitting thing that we did, they keep saying, oh, that is not us. This is our own. Give us this. This year, I said, okay, let's do the Nigerian way. Give us everything that we need to pay in total. Then I will give you, there's one particular person that comes, I give you, go and pay everything and give me a receipt. He went, he did that, they gave us all the receipts. They said we have to do tests for all the stuff. I took my time.
Right. So there's a bunch more, but it's a little long. Let's take a look at some tweets. There were reactions on social media. Carlo Ajay, follow him. He's a financial advisor. Says here, you cannot watch this and not empathize. The local and state taxes, fines, and fees kill SMEs across Nigeria. My office in Ikoyi was sealed because it had no tree or plant in front of it to, quote, fight the global ozone layer depletion. Not joking. There's a follow-up thread. It says, talking of ozone layer, Benue State once imposed an ozone layer protection levy on businesses, and I think I hear Doctor laughing, and then he now replies, says tax on generators to fight ozone layer. Another tweet there says, my office space looks like it's empty, no signs, shut doors, only by invite. He then says, look, Lekki Phase 1 is a service SME hub, drive around, no signs, everyone is dodging the LIRS and LASA, the signage folks. So I mean, this is we continue to talk about this. You have to ask, where does all this money go? The folks keep paying and paying and paying. Is there a structure where you can, as you heard the entrepreneur in the video say, just give me everything that we're supposed to pay in the universe of fees so that I know I've paid everything. They still keep coming back. It's just one hurdle after another for businesses here, and it's a struggle. That's pretty much the only focus of what
I like to know. Okay.
But Roses, you have to know who was laughing. None other than Rufai, our resident giggler.
That was me laughing, Rotus. And why I was laughing is quite very serious. In fact, I should have been crying because if a man cannot cry, he would laugh. That's why I was laughing, actually. We set up a sort of like a commission, PEBEC, to aid ease of doing business. And I would like if you can bring Dr. Jumoke on this show. Because Dr. Jumoke comes on, she says all the great things. You are really, really happy about what is happening with PEBEC. But you go on the ground and the reality is stark opposites. True. These people, or I don't know who they are, let me use that, let me just be safe on that. They will send all sorts of people to come collect all sorts of levy from you, and you'll be shocked that this money is not even remitted to those in authority. It's all a racketeering scam at some point. You remember the Lagos State waste bin issue that we treated here at a point?
Right.
That someone said there was a specific waste bin you had to buy to put in your car in Lagos State? Right. It's just like the way the racket goes on. But why does this continue? Because some people aid them. Some people aid them. And these are the things we should look into. I'm saying this ozone layer fee. Lagos is supposed to have like an environmental management agency. What are they using the money for the ozone layer to do? They sanctioned Kalu for not having a tree of the house. The last time I checked, wasn't it the Lagos State government that cut up all the trees in Ikoyi?
True, very
true. Are you kidding me?
True.
What are we doing in this country?
Facts. It is a hostile terrain for business, and you're referring to Dr. Jumoke Oduwole.
Right.
Nigeria has, received plaudits all over the world for moving up in the ease of doing business indices. But you have situations like this, very real situations, and a lot of people will thank her for posting this video because we can all feel her pain. AMAC a few weeks ago disbanded their traffic control task force because a lot of Abuja residents complained about their high-handedness and their excesses. I hope similar attention is paid to this complaint because it's constant with the shifting goalposts, multiple taxes. How on earth are Nigerian entrepreneurs supposed to make a buck in this kind of country?
Exactly.
Well, quickly. The ease of doing business is one of the major priorities of the Buhari administration. In 2016, the administration set up the Presidential Ease of Doing Business Council, PEBEC, as it is known, led by the Vice President himself, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, with one of his senior special assistants, Jumoke Oduwole, as the Secretary of PEBEC. Now, in 2019, Jumoke Oduwole told us that they had initiated up to 140 reforms in terms of the ease of doing business in Nigeria, with special focus on small and medium-scale enterprises to ensure that they thrive and to also ensure that they are competitive. Now, by 2019-2020, Nigeria had moved up in the ranking from about 141 in 2018 to 131 out of 140 countries. And that was celebrated. When Jumoke Oduwole came on this program, she celebrated it. Now, easy business for SMEs is also a major pillar of the economic recovery and growth plan of the government, 2017 to 2020. But what the story you have brought shows us is that clearly there are people who even sabotage government with his best intentions, who game the system. Right. So we can see that in all of this, there is corruption, there is extortion, there are persons, groups, cabals, economic cabals, who try to frustrate the objectives of government. And I think in this regard, the Vice President and Jumoke Oduwole and all the persons involved in making sure that business is easier in Nigeria through support for SMEs, through provision of incentives for SMEs, which is an area in which the Central Bank of Nigeria has been actively involved, that they note this aspect, that there are some fifth columnists who are trying to frustrate the intentions of government. The SMEs in Nigeria constitute about, is it 70%, of the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Over 60 or 60% about
over 60%.
Yeah, over 60%, close to 70%.
Over 40 million SMEs.
Of the economy. Now, if you frustrate that, and you are harassing people, talking about planting trees, this and that, all kinds of senseless and destructive and, sabotage interventions, then, of course, you are damaging public policy. So the onus is on PEBEC and on government to make sure that they put a mechanism in place to make sure that state policy is not sabotaged by persons who believe that in Nigeria, any policy at all can be compromised. Right. And that is part of the tragedy of the Nigerian story. There is no policy you come up with. There will be some characters who will think that they can bypass it.
I like that point.
But I like that point, Doctor. But the characters have links to people in government.
No, yes, they're part of the government.
And they are aided by people in government. Because when you engage most of these characters, you see that it comes from somewhere. There's a line thread. They can mention some top personnel there and things like that. I mean, it's just like the money they collect in parks. What is the legitimacy of paying motor park fees and levies? What is the legitimacy?
I like the point because it's more, because yes, you're right as well, Rufai, in the fact that they are a part of or linked closely to the government, state or federal, but it's a more nuanced point. So I always appreciate a bit of nuance. So and
actually, I had Jumoke Oduwole on the Global Business Report, but that was back in February before the lockdown. So at that time, things were a little different. So I'm going to try to get her back on so we can discuss this in earnest.
But Rotus, if you still have time, there was a question I wanted to ask you yesterday. I mean, Treasury bills are down to about 0.5%.
Right.
and yet, treasury bills are thriving, they are oversubscribed. Why is everybody buying treasury bills?
Well, Doctor, I mean, the people, pretty much PFAs are behind a lot of that. They have to park their funds somewhere. Some of those funds are flowing into the equities market. The stock market, as I told you the other day, is still on. Yesterday was the 4th day in a row that the stock market has been on the bull run. They are still in treasury bills because it's government guaranteed safety, and essentially the market just doesn't have enough depth to where there are enough options to where you can go elsewhere. So even though the rates are low, they're still putting their funds there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Michael Wilson joining us from London. Michael, it's a pleasure talking to you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. We were talking about that sort of rotation trade yesterday, weren't we, between the so-called new economy stocks and old economy stocks. That's actually slowed down very, very slightly, but I would caution that investors may well have slightly paused yesterday because it was Veterans Day in the United States, which means that all the government offices are closed and the bond markets are too. Asian markets, I mean, they were quite sensible, really, just drifted, content to follow Wall Street's relatively positive session. Nasdaq up 2%, Dow Jones very, very little. Japan's Nikkei 225 slightly unchanged this morning, possibly down a bit. A lot of nerves in China's technology markets. I'll come on to that in a second. Basically, what's happening is that the mainland markets in China are weighed down with what we touched on yesterday, this new government proposals for big tech legislation offsetting these extraordinary sales from Singles Day yesterday. The Shanghai Composite down about 0.25%. Now, Singles Day, if you don't know what that is, well, you know what Valentine's Day is. So this is a sort of anti-Valentine's Day thing, another opportunity to buy lots of useless things and then have to send them back basically online. But it's e-commerce giants like Alibaba, JD.com. They racked up $115 billion in sales. That's not an inconsiderable amount during the Singles Day. That's a new kind of thing. And it also shows, to a certain extent, that the Chinese domestic economy is actually doing quite well. What these online things do is actually they showcase stuff from all around the world. So it's not just Chinese goods, and it looks as though the Chinese are actually back in a sort of buying mode again. But those, given the fact that they're both those large companies, those behemoths of Chinese online shopping and finance, they collectively shed over $290 billion in their share prices over the past couple of sessions. At Alibaba, Tencent, Pinduoduo, JD.com and Meituan. All those companies which will become very big names. You obviously know Alibaba, Tencent and JD.com are suffering. We'll see how that happens. But it's clear the Chinese authorities are very worried that these companies themselves are actually going to overtake state-owned companies, which, of course, in a communist country like China really is, they don't like that too much. Vaccine hopes. They ran slightly aground yesterday. New York Governor Mario Cuomo threatening to ratchet restrictions slightly higher in New York because of the COVID increase there. The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine news, a double-edged sword, as I was suggesting yesterday, for Europe and the United States, because it means that the governments will be worried about their population saying, come on, we have a second lockdown and there's a vaccine on the horizon. Who are you trying to kid? You know, why can we not have the vaccine right now? Well, lots of reasons why that is. So I suspect there'll be what we might politely describe as less social discipline amongst various populaces as a result of that. UK, EU markets, FTSE, 5-month high with the vaccine narrative. That going quite strongly. European stocks helped by talk yesterday that the latest 1.8 trillion euro EU budget has actually been finalised, and that will mean that 750 billion euro will be jointly, and that'll be given out to countries. We discussed this, it seems like ages ago, doesn't it? We were only talking about this in June, actually, to be given out as a mixture of loans and grants to various countries. You remember the frugal five we were talking about, saying it shouldn't be they shouldn't be grants, they should be loans with fixed terms and so on. And yesterday, the ECB president, Christine Lagarde, poured a bit of cold water, saying that the ECB will be ready in case there's a resurgence. Well, there clearly is. We can expect to hear more I guess, from central bankers here at the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell as well. UK economy bounced back 15.5% in GDP from July to September, but not reaching pre-COVID levels. There he is, Boris Johnson, a long, long time ago, speaking in a very crowded House of Commons, how they'd all wish for that. It's not going too well in Number 10. Chief of Communications has gone. The top level of administration in the UK is not a very happy ship. As we speak, it might get even unhappier. The Chancellor is proposing an increase in capital gain taxes, which could be doubled by cutting exemptions and doubling rates. We're going to have to pay for what we've actually spent so far.
Okay, I mean, great one you put out there. I'm sure China did not, or the Chinese authority did not understand what capitalism was all about. Now they're trying to clamp down on big tech companies. That's what you get by trying to run a capitalist and a communist state at the same time. But I want to talk about Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday that I followed strongly. Sir Keir Starmer of the Labour Party consistently pounded, pretty much reminded me of the Second World War and the pounding and the bombings, pounded Boris Johnson yesterday on how the furlough scheme was, the integrity of the furlough scheme. The money didn't get to the people needed, and now they're having another furlough scheme. They can't account. Most of that money was frittered away in fraud. What's your take on this?
Well, it's not most of the money. It's some of the money was frittered away on fraud, and that happens. It'll happen in the United States as well. It depends what these politicians decided that they needed to do, and they were all acting in panic, as you can appreciate, just like they did in the banking crisis, because they'd never seen anything like it before, and they'd never seen anything like this pandemic before. So what they were doing, they're saying, all right, we're going to have a furlough scheme. The state will pay for 80% of workers' income. Employers will also pay for part of it. It did seem it was quite a constructive scheme at the time. Yes, some of it was frittered away. Some of it was badly regulated and so on. I think that I'd like to look back to see what Keir Starmer was originally saying about this scheme when the government brought it in. I seem to remember there was a cross-party support for all this. I could be wrong, but I think there was. I've got a question for you as well, which I just didn't quite get to in my little roundup there, because I realised we were getting pretty short of time. But you need to pay attention to this, and this where maybe some kind of discussion you might want to have. But PricewaterhouseCoopers, whatever you think about them, they are an international accounting company, and they have an annual oil and gas review of Africa, and they have called peak oil. They've now said that peak oil has passed and that the global oil demand will never exceed 2019's level as the energy transition, as they put it, gets new wings. I would have thought that would be something that you might want to take on.
Yeah, that would be a major challenge.
Because that's actually quite important.
That would certainly be a major challenge for a commodity-dependent country like Nigeria. But I have two questions for you. They are not necessarily economic. The first one is the European Union taking a decision today on LGBT equality. What will be the implications for the world of work in Europe, and what is likely to be the reactions from, say, Poland and Hungary, which have very diverse positions with regard to the LGBT community? The second question is the Kane resigning yesterday because we were told Carrie Simons blocked his promotion to the position of Chief of Staff. Here in Africa, that's a sensitive issue. First ladies dictating public policy and choices. It's very strange to see that in that regard, the UK is beginning to look like an African country in terms of promotions and decisions in the government house.
On your first point, I'd let the politicians argue about that, really. I suspect that, yes, countries like Poland and Hungary will be will pretty much object to that, because they are very traditional Catholic countries, and they will not believe in a great deal of inclusion progress, I would imagine. That's up to them. They decided when they joined the EU that they would have to put up with what the EU was having as general policy. If they don't like that, then they're perfectly willing to say that to the European Commission, and we'll see how that plays out. As far as First Ladies are concerned, yeah, she's not actually married to Boris Johnson, so I'm not exactly sure whether she is the First Lady or not. But that said, I think that what I was trying to point out, there's a lot of disagreement happening in Number 10 right now, and a lot of people vying for vying position, really, to try to influence the Prime Minister. And that's not very healthy for where we're going. I think politicians are very much out of their depth right now, given this. And we have a lot, and the vaccine is not simplifying this at all. As I was saying right at the beginning of all this, we're going to see a lot of social disruption. I think the head of communications, in fact, the new communications spokeswoman coming in who is a journalist, also objected to this chat, and that's one of the reasons why he's gone as well. He won't go to the end of the year. He hasn't sort of stomped out. There is a restructuring taking place, and I think the name of Carrie Symonds actually came up just as it would just if you'd been a journalist covering the story. You would have said, yes, she probably did have a private word within the Prime Minister's ear. Who knows?
Right. Well, as Labour put it, they're fighting like rats in a sack. Most evocative. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. All right, for updates on COVID-19 pandemic, at this one more, it looks as if the big pharma companies are fighting like rats in a sack to get this vaccine out. This one.
Race, but it must be said that this race should not be for the swift, but for efficacy and safety. Good morning, guys. Let's take a quick look at what the Johns Hopkins University tally has for us this morning. With countries such as the UK crossing green milestones of COVID-19 related deaths, and the United States dealing with record hospitalizations. Well, total infections are still in the region of 52 million, as you see on your screen. That's a live tally from the Johns Hopkins University. We also have the death rates in the region of 1.2 million. But let's look at the daily graph to have a picture of what truly happened yesterday. Yes, that graph. It shows that there were over 600,000 look at the graph. Over 600,000 cases were recorded just yesterday. And the white graph, the white indication on that graph is the death rate. The yellow is for the cases. The white graph indicates that yesterday alone, there were over 10,000 deaths globally as well. So those numbers are rising. And talking about the U.S., Michael Wilson mentioned Governor Cuomo of New York. You would recall that New York was the epicenter of the outbreak in the U.S. when it first started months ago. Yesterday, Governor Cuomo announced that those restrictions will come into effect on Friday, and there will be bars, restaurants, gym in the state to shut down on-premises services at 10 p.m. We are in the U.S., guys. We've seen the graph enough. And of course, the U.S. yesterday also recorded its highest daily toll ever since the pandemic started. They recorded over 140,000 cases yesterday. So Governor Cuomo is saying, I cannot allow for my state to be another epicenter this time around, so he's taking those measures. We're also seeing states in the Midwest of the country tighten restrictions to curb the spread of the virus. Away from the U.S., barely 2 days after the U.S. pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and its German counterpart BioNTech announced that their vaccine has over 90% efficacy in preventing COVID-19, well, guess what? Russia says its own vaccine as well. You recall the Sputnik 5? Yes, they say Sputnik 5 also has efficacy of 92%. The Russian calculation was based on the 20 confirmed COVID-19 cases split between vaccinated individuals and those who received the placebo. Now, according to a published statement on Sputnik 5 website, anybody can check this out. Currently, 40,000 volunteers are taking part in double-blinded, randomized, placebo-controlled phase 3 of the clinical trials. Out of those 40,000, 20,000 have been vaccinated with the first dose of the vaccine, and more than 16,000 with both the first and second doses of the vaccine. A reminder that Russia was the first country to register and approve a coronavirus vaccine way back in August, and you would also recall that that drew some concerns, criticisms, and suspicion. And finally, on the continent of Africa, despite having the highest number of COVID-19 cases, well, South Africa says it will open up travel to all countries and restore normal trading hours of alcohol in an effort to boost tourism and hospitality, or the hospitality sectors in the country. And that's according to the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, who addressed the country last night. Although he did not say when these new rules will come into effect, at the moment, South Africa currently has a lengthy no-fly list that bans tourists from dozens of European countries as well as the US. The new easing of travel requires that travelers will present negative COVID-19 certificates. This is coming at a time when there are concerns of a possible second wave on the continent. It also comes ahead of a time where South Africa normally would be at the peak of its tourism season.
Well, very quickly, I mean, the Russian story that you brought, there's something called COVID nationalism.
Yes.
Which observers and analysts have tried to deplore. What was that one we had the other day from Pfizer? Pfizer, United States, collaborating with BioNTech. And then shortly after, you brought the story yesterday of Bolsonaro deploring the Russian effort, and now the Chinese effort, I guess.
The Chinese, yes.
The Chinese effort.
Yes.
And then today, you have brought a story about Russia, saying that they have achieved 92% efficacy with Sputnik 5. Now, so what we're seeing is what the WHO Director General had originally warned about, which is this, the commercialization, the nationalization of the solution to COVID-19. And if you break it down, there is an economic dimension to it in terms of the politics among the big farmers. But I think that what everyone needs to be reminded about is the position of Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus of the WHO, that what is required is not COVID nationalism. Yeah. What is required is COVID solidarity. And what best represents that is the COVAX alliance, driven by WHO, you know, and other groups. So I think that this is the point we need to make in that regard. Otherwise, you will see countries, you know, rushing. This one will come and say, oh, we have found a vaccine that is 90%. Another one will come and say, our own is 92%. Don't be surprised in a week's time, another country will say, oh, this one is 95%. That's not what the world needs. Yeah. What the world needs is a vaccine that can save the rest of the world. And that is the product of globalism, of solidarity, and that is driven by the basic rules, the golden rules in science. Safety, which is the basic golden rule.
Chance would be a fine thing. The other day, Rufai was saying, well, we weren't on air at the time, Rufai was telling me how the British have already ordered a lot of the Pfizer vaccine. And I thought, well, 40 million is not that much. Come to find out that 82% of whatever Pfizer can produce, it sounds like a lot, over 1 billion doses, have already been accounted for. The EU, the US, Canada. So, Dr. Abate, I think you're being very optimistic. I like your rosy optimism, but, you know, it appears that COVID nationalism is alive and well.
In fact, these people are just showing us that we don't have money. Honestly.
Yes.
That's just it. Yeah. All right. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll go straight. We'll talk to more after the break. Okay, so we got it in. Aaron Akirjala, what's up on sports?
Yeah, good morning to you, Rufai. Good morning to you, Tundu. More importantly, good morning to you, Dr. Abati, this morning. And let's get you.
No point for Tundu.
No, I'm still trying to get my.
Ignore Dr. Abati.
I'm sure
Dr. Abati is winding you up.
Aaron, what you should say is, I will attack enemies of Tundu like Vijay Van Dyke.
All right, let's start it off from the Super Eagles. We know the Super Eagles are still in camp, and all 23 players have actually arrived and gearing up to play at the Samuel Ogbomodia Stadium tomorrow. More importantly is the fact that COVID-19 test has been carried out on all 23 players and the backroom staff in preparation for this particular game. Also, the Lone Stars of Sierra Leone had a 43-man contingent arrive yesterday in Benin City. So a lot is expected from this particular team. Remember, for Genotro, his modus operandi, most importantly, when it comes to qualifiers, seems to be easy breezy, always winning and always qualifying with a game to spare. Now, looking at that, of course, certainly there were other qualifiers that went down yesterday, with Guinea beating Chad, Kenya drawing with Comoros, Mauritania drawing also with Burundi, Senegal beating Guinea-Bissau 2-0 with Sadio Mane starring in that particular one, and Libya losing to Equatorial Guinea. Speaking about Senegal, a lot is expected from Senegal, the Teranga Lions. They've been quite emphatic. We have been hoping that they will rise up to the occasion. They have quite a lot of stars, but yet to deliver. And yesterday, they easily dispatched their neighbor 2-0 as it stood. For the brevity of time, let's actually get straight into international football. And the news actually came in, and quite excited about that, which was the fact that 8 days after the man was admitted into the hospital, rushed to the hospital as a matter of fact, Diego Armando Maradona, we all know him, the living legend and icon of football, both in Argentina, was rushed to the hospital due to some anemia, dehydration, and also he had a blood clot. And right now, after leaving the hospital, he was driven straight to a rehab center to treat his alcohol dependency. And this is not the first time Diego Armando Maradona has struggled with either substance abuse or alcohol abuse. And at 60, he himself has admitted that if he had taken care of himself and he had probably not given so much into his indiscretions, that he would have been far a greater player than he is or than he was. But nevertheless, at 16, he needs to start toning down on some of the excesses that he's actually given to over the years. He's still a coach as we speak. He still coaches a team, gymnastic in Argentina. But at the moment, he's worrying about staying fit. And his party and his back guys are saying the worst is behind him at the moment. So we're looking forward to that. And before I come to you guys quickly, talking about the Olympics, we know that the Olympics was supposed to hold this year. That did not happen, no thanks to COVID-19. But next year, the IOC, talking about the International Olympic Committee's chief, Thomas Bach, has insisted that come rain, come shine, come rapture, come ruin, the Olympics will hold. Nothing is going to stop the Olympics from holding next year. That with COVID or no COVID, the Olympics will hold. They are supposed to have a meeting in Tokyo next week, and they are more concerned about the modalities of hosting the Olympic as against maybe deferring it if the numbers or if we don't even have a vaccine.
I mean, okay, Dr. Wazir?
Yes, Aaron, I was going to talk first about Diego Maradona, iconic football player, Argentine superstar. I think that we should focus more on the lessons that his example project, which is the danger of drug abuse. We have had many very talented people in the world, not just in football, but also in different aspects of arts and culture, who have ended up not fulfilling their potential, abbreviating their potential on account of drug abuse. In music, when Whitney Houston died, I mean, the whole world was
crushed.
Yes.
Him in Winehouse. When she died, we were told it was also because of drug abuse. Prince. And then, I mean, the legend of all legends, Michael Jackson, was also because of drug abuse. And then in football, before Diego Maradona, we have had Paul Gascoigne. I think Paul Gascoigne was with the Man U. We had George Best. Okay, yes. So you
Gaza,
you had
England.
Adrian Mutu, who was with what club was that? Chelsea.
With Chelsea and
and these were superstars, people who showed great potential, but because of substance abuse, alcohol abuse, they ended up abbreviating their own talent. So I think at this point, even what's his name, Maradona's doctor, I was apprehensive. Family members were apprehensive that, look, this situation, the man is so far gone, it could only get worse. So I hope that there will be a system in place, to show these examples, to advise younger legends, younger athletes, to show that no matter how talented you are, if you abuse drugs, then of course you are on a downhill spiral.
But I just have to
As
say,
for the Olympics.
Sorry, by way of correction, Prince
Okay.
was a staunch Jehovah's Witness. He did not abuse recreational drugs. The poor man died of an accidental drug overdose of painkillers from a hip complication that
Okay,
he
so
suffered.
he was not the one that abused drugs?
No.
No, he didn't.
Okay. But, you know, as for the Olympics, you are the person who always talks about cost implications. And, you know, the Olympics, the Tokyo people, they are now saying in 2021, they are not going to allow fans in the club and all of that. What is the meaning of that in terms of cost? Because they will lose a lot of money.
Yes, they will lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
The Olympics, first of all, a lot of people, there are talks that the Olympics should be profitable to the city that is hosting the Olympic, or the nation that is hosting the Olympics.
That's the point.
But the truth is this, looking at the numbers critically, they always take a loss, massive loss. And to probably mitigate against some of these losses, certainly when fans comes in, tourism, memorabilia, and several other paraphernalias that actually follow or come along with the Olympics probably shore up some of these losses. That is why they are still insistent that stadiums have been built, transportation networks have been expanded, and something must happen. We are hoping it does, but we cannot be pushing it because COVID is still rife in the air as we speak.
I feel sorry for Japan. They've had really bad luck where Olympics are concerned. You'll
Yes.
recall this is actually the second time the Olympics have been cancelled when Japan was supposed to be hosting. And as for Diego Maradona, I just want to buttress what Dr. Abati said. I mean, he's behaved appallingly to Nigerian team, which is how come I'm no longer a fan, personally. I'm not, because I'm a patriotic Nigerian. And also this South Korean fan when he made this quite racist gesture. But that could also be because of his alcohol abuse. It might not have been himself. So anybody that seeks help in this regard should be supported. It's a brave thing to do.
Tundu very well said. I mean, I think the most important lesson and the picture that should resonate with people around the world and young people to be able to stay off drugs and alcoholism is the picture of George Best. After his liver was frazzled, was pretty much burned from alcohol, and he looked and he stared into the camera on his hospital bed about to die, and he said, "Please don't die like me." I think that should do it for a lot of people.
It's unfortunate, but the point is this: because they actually have the cash and they actually open, they are superstars. These things are literally thrown at them. They might not even want it.
Like
but
George Best,
thrown at them.
like George Best said again, booze, beds, and fast cars killed me.